Hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today on Thursday. It feels like it's been a really long week already. I'm sure a lot of you are feeling that every week, as I am. We've got lovely Mary today from Industry Minds, who's joining us to speak about mental health and how we can look after ourselves, not only in the creative industries, but during this time. You know, as I say, we're all going through a lot of different things, and all of our experiences are very different. But Mary's been working with Industry Minds to help people get more access to mental health help. So we're going to be having a chat about how we can look after ourselves a little bit better. So if you have any questions throughout, please do pop them in the chat box, and I will ask Mary at the end. I'm Hannah from Backstage, and we're doing, hopefully you've been to some of these before, we've been doing these as part of our digital slate, which are all aimed at helping you stay connected to the industry, but also learn new things. And as part of that, I really thought that this conversation about mental health was really important that we include it as well. So thanks for joining us, and thank you, Mary. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, hi Hannah.
Hi. So how long have you worked with Industry Minds?
Really since Industry Minds started in 2018 towards the end, and I joined them just at the beginning of 2019 when they introduced the counselling part of that. They started with a podcast, as you probably know, and then developed that into providing free or very low cost counselling to creators, and that's so I came in January 2019.
Great. And do you have you seen similar problems being broached when you are in conversation with people through your work with them?
Oh, very much so. Quite often there are patterns, and even with lockdown, I could see the pattern. The anxiety that was sitting there, Hannah, initially around finances, and then how that developed, how that changed when people were in lockdown, the connections, missing the connections, and now, of course, the concerns. Well, what's next? What's coming next with the industry?
Yeah. And that's all something that we're going to be having, well, Mary will be broaching today. So I'll leave you to it. I'm going to pop off my camera now and leave you in Mary's very, very capable hands. As I say, you know, guys, I really do want you to get involved in this conversation, and we're here for you, and Mary's here for you to answer any questions that you have on this topic. So if you do have any questions on coping with certain things, or any tips that you need, please do pop them in, and I will absolutely ask them to Mary when I come back at the end. Okay, thank you so much, Mary.
Thank you, Hannah. And just keep me right for time. Just pop me a message or something, or that old hook to pull me off and go, wind it up, Mary, just in case.
Okay. I absolutely will.
Oh, thank you. And I think today I'm going to talk, Hannah was saying, is there a theme that goes, you know, with people? And what I'm noticing in the last few weeks are emotions. Do you know, that people, I will say to a client, so how does that feel? What are you feeling at the moment? And sometimes they struggle. Sometimes people struggle to identify exactly what that emotion is. So I'm going to talk a little bit about emotions, and obviously with the way the industry is, and this is not just about the industry, but you know, people in work, everyone really. Going to talk a little bit about endings and how that impacts on our emotions, and maybe a little bit about what we can do about it. So I wonder how you're feeling. How are you feeling today? No, really, you know, I mean, what are the emotions that are sitting with you at the moment? I wonder if it's around sadness. If you are within the industry, is there sadness about what's happening within the industry at the moment? Sadness, yeah, thank you for Marianne. Sadness sitting there. I wonder if there's fear. Is you the emotion that's sitting there with you? Is it fear? You can't see the path ahead. What's next in this topsy-turvy world at the moment? Maybe there's anger sitting there. COVID-19 has stolen so much from so many of us. It's created that, diverse, I think. Oh, diverse, sorry. It's created, that uncertainty for so many, and drained, says someone. And that's wonderful, being able to get in touch with your emotions, and someone saying confused. But I wonder with some, are you struggling to find the emotion, or just unable to name it? And there's wonderful, people are so in touch, restless, someone has just said. About emotions, emotions are a more basic part of who we are than our thoughts. We can't erase our emotions, and they won't be denied any more than we can ignore the feelings when we're hungry or we're thirsty. They're there, they're shouting at us to listen. And emotion is necessary for survival. The emotion can tell us when we need to run, going back to that fear, that anxiety, that fight or flight is telling us something's wrong. Emotions are our body's way of communicating. Exhausted, says someone. Emotion, it's our body's way of telling us, driving us to do something, communicating with us. So it's important to listen, to hear what that emotion is saying, to be in touch with our emotions. Something you hear a lot. Are you in touch with your emotions? Well, are you? And I wonder, or do you choose not to listen? I wonder, would you choose not to listen to a teacher, a colleague, someone who's giving you information on how to complete a task or an assignment? If they're saying, here's the information, would you choose not to listen? Would you choose not to listen when you're trying to find your way somewhere, when you're a bit lost and someone gives you directions? Would you not listen? And would you choose not to listen maybe when a friend or a family member is telling you that they're upset, that they're scared, that they're angry, that they're excited? I'll bet you wouldn't. You would listen to all of them. And yet time after time, I find with clients that they don't listen to what their emotions are telling them, or they struggle to find the emotion they're feeling. So they can't respond appropriately because they don't know what is it I'm actually feeling. As I said before, for every emotion, there's a purpose. They help us to adapt, to survive, and to thrive. So I wonder what your emotion is telling you right now. Listen to your emotion and then find a way to act on it to improve your situation. Anger is telling us to fight back, to protect ourselves. Fear is telling us to escape, self-preservation. Hurt is pushing us to correct the situation. Sadness is telling us we're losing something important. And compassion is pushing us to help other people. Every emotion is telling us something very, very important. So what's your emotion telling you today? Sometimes our past experiences result in us trying to push down our emotions. They're too hard to accept, to listen to. So we deny them. We try to wipe them out. Sometimes we feel ashamed of the emotions. I have clients who will say to me, well, I shouldn't be feeling sad, Mary. Other people have it worse than me. I shouldn't be feeling disappointed because look how lucky I am. Denying these emotions, pushing them down rather than listening to them. If you don't listen to your emotions, you're putting yourself at a disadvantage. For example, what we talked about, you'll never know the content if you're not listening to your colleague, to your tutor about what to include in a task, an assignment. You'll never know what to include. You'll put yourself at a disadvantage. If you're walking, you could be walking in circles or driving in circles for hours, trying to find that destination if you don't listen to the person giving you instructions. You could be missing something very important that's happening to your friend or your family member if you don't listen to what they're saying. You wouldn't ignore any of those situations, would you? but do you always listen to your own emotions? Pushing away our emotions can actually leave you feeling vulnerable, maybe less productive, and it makes it harder to experience life at its fullest by pushing them away, by not listening. Emotions feed the human connections that give life its depth, its richness, that makes it worthwhile, all of those emotions. Emotions are connections to other people, help us stave off feelings of emptiness and loneliness. So, so important. And what happens if you push down or ignore your emotions? Well, they can become physical symptoms, such as headache or back pain. I remember many years ago, I suffered with pain in my jaw. I could barely open my mouth. And I went to my GP and he said, go to the dentist, Mary, it's something to do with your teeth. I went to the dentist said, Mary, there's nothing wrong with your teeth, go back to your GP. And eventually it was a friend who said, oh, sounds a bit like stress, Mary, what's going on? And once realising what the emotion was and dealing with that emotion, hey, honestly, the jaw pain disappeared. It can have that physical effect on us. It can turn into depression. If we push down or we ignore those emotions, it can turn into depression. It can affect our sleep, our eating habits, our concentration, and can lead to social isolation, where we start to keep ourselves apart from other folk. It can make you feel tired. It can make you explode at random times over nothing. If that's anger, perhaps you're pushing down until eventually that barrel is so full, it just explodes. It can aggravate anxiety and panic attacks. Someone mentioned a panic attack earlier. How do I deal with a panic attack? Is part of that saying, well, what's the emotion? What am I feeling right now? Denying those emotions can make you feel empty, unfulfilled, and can cause you to question the purpose and the value of life. So, so important. So what I would say to you is recognize your feelings, put them into words. It is so powerful to say, I feel sad. It's powerful to say, I was hurt by what you said. Acknowledge the emotions. When you identify and name your feelings to yourself or to someone else, you're taking charge, you're taking control, you're doing something about what is going on with you. You're making that unknown known, and you're taking something from the inside and putting it on the outside, which is very healthy. You developed, those who are in the industry or outside the industry, you've developed so many skills during your training: dancing, singing, writing, choreography. So you know the work that goes into improving all of those skills, the practice you need to put in to be good at what you do. And putting words to your feelings is a skill. That's perhaps why some people find it difficult. It is a skill. So it needs practice, it needs work, it needs effort, as you do with all your other skills, if we're going to develop. Let's try out the skill. Let's take 5 minutes to try out the skill of putting your feelings into words. And please feel free to put them up on the screen. Hopefully you're finding you've got a little space, you're alone with no distractions at the moment. But if not, you can try this later. I can pass this slide that I'm not unable to show at the moment off to Hannah. She can share it. Wow, sadness, anger, confusion. Let's look at that. For those who are struggling perhaps to get in touch, close your eyes. Close your eyes. Picture a blank screen in your mind. Banish all the thoughts and focus your attention on that blank screen. Turn your attention inward to where your emotions are sitting or where your emotions are hiding. And ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? What am I feeling right now? Be aware of any other thoughts that might pop into your head and erase them quickly. Keep your focus on what am I feeling right now. If you have awareness of the feeling, try to find feeling words to express it. If you're struggling to identify any feelings, I'll say a few feeling words. One may jump out to help you. Depressed, worn out, betrayed to someone, vulnerable, unchallenged, unhappy, inadequate, thankful. There may be positive. I feel good. I feel strong. I feel open. I feel powerless, perhaps. I feel anxious. See if you can identify the feeling words and see if any jump out and say, that's it. Once you have that feeling word, the word that feels right for you, we're then going to look at the why you feel like that. Ask yourself, why would I be feeling, I'll use lonely at the moment. Why would I be feeling lonely right now? That's the hard bit. This is a hard bit, and this is where I find that clients get stuck. They can say, I feel isolated, I feel lonely. The hard part is finding the reasons behind a feeling. That can be difficult for some people. And that's where the conversation with a friend or a chat with a counsellor can help. But asking yourself the questions about the feeling can help you understand why you are feeling it. And suppose the feeling you identified was sadness. Then we're looking to go, well, the why. And if you'd open your eyes, close your eyes again, and perhaps ask these questions. Identify your feeling. Here are some questions. What is going on in my life at the moment that might make me feel isolated, that might make me feel alone, whatever your feeling word is? What's going on in my life at the moment that might make me feel like this? Has something happened recently to upset me? Has something sad or troubling from the past been brought back up by recent events? Is this feeling, whatever it is this feeling of loneliness familiar to me? Have I felt it before? Have I felt it often before? If so, when did I feel it? And why did I feel it? Is this an underlying feeling perhaps that's often with me, sitting there, just waiting? And if that's the case, what happened in my past that may have caused it in the beginning? Looking back, where did these feelings come from? Please open your eyes again. That's something, maybe difficult to do at the moment on this medium, but something that when you have a quiet moment that you can try for yourself. Look for the reasons, identify what you're feeling and look for the reasons. And remember, it is a skill. If it's difficult, you try again. You didn't walk into drama school or college or university or your first day at work and go, here I am, and walk out at 5 o'clock going, now I'm trained. Now I know what I'm doing. Those skills took years to practice, to develop, and this is a skill. So as you keep going forward with it, then you will get better and better at it. Build that internal focus and build the internal focus skills. It helps sometimes to record your feelings. If you're struggling to get in touch with those feelings, it can help some people to record them at least 3 times a day, that emotions diary, and helping you that's learning you to focus inwards as well. And eventually it becomes natural. You're naturally tuned in to your emotions as they happen. And then you can deal with them rather than it's like that barrel filling up with water, that the emotions are filling up, not dealing with them, and eventually explodes. It can only hold so much. So dealing with the emotions as they arise. With your emotions, you name it, feel it, and you move through it. Absolutely. Emotions around COVID-19 have been the subject of a number of sessions with clients, And I wonder if you do identify with any of the emotions that have come across from clients, from creatives in the industry and beyond. Loss, emptiness, fear, anger, rejection. And we'll look at the graduates of 2020, where there have been unexpected endings. That joyful occasion where you graduate, when you're moving on to something new, and of course taken away. And with that, you know, that particularly unexpected endings, there are emotions that go with those endings. Life, of course, is full of endings. Yeah, we move house, there's an ending. We go to a new school, the end of a year, yes, is an ending. The end of a holiday, the end of training. A lot of them are planned, and that sits okay with us. It can be a difficult transition for some and bring anxiety, uncertainty, and chaos for unexpected endings. For some, actually, it might bring feelings of excitement. I have had clients who have come and they've said, well, do you know, that this is a bit of a crossroads for me. I was actually thinking that I would maybe want to go back and do a master's. I was thinking I would like to teach. I was thinking that this industry isn't for me anymore. So for some, there's excitement or curiosity. But certainly for others, there is that loss, that rejection, that fear, that emptiness. Unplanned endings, as I say, are probably a part of all our experience here too, every one of us. And of course, there was that article in the Stage the other day that there are unplanned endings for so many, for West End shows, for Les Mis, for Mary Poppins, and businesses closing down, unplanned endings for those who find themselves made redundant or out of work. Unplanned endings, we think that we've all experienced an unplanned ending. It might be that being dumped by a boyfriend, a girlfriend, a partner without warning. Maybe it was redundancy, unplanned. Perhaps the death of a loved one. A job ending suddenly, again, something that's happened during COVID-19. Or perhaps that ending with that unplanned ending with family or friends. Again, a symptom of COVID-19, where we find ourselves away from the connections. A lot of people, certainly in London, who have maybe gone home to family, are missing those connections. They're missing people of their own age, people who have, you know, similar interests as them. They're missing the conversation and the emotions that go with that, an unplanned ending. Very much how we experience our endings in our early lives influence the way we experience endings now. Just as the emotions that come up for you, a lot of that may go back to early experiences. And it's the same with endings. How were endings for us when we were young? Unexpected endings that we're facing can actually trigger memories of a past ending that was difficult, that was unwanted or painful. For example, the loss of a parent when young may have elements for you of abandonment, of unresolved loss, of fear of intimacy. So how do we deal with those endings, those unplanned endings and everything that comes with it? Imagine, and I saw the comments that were coming up, there's lots of different thoughts, lots of different feelings, lots of different emotions in the room. And some of you may well be thinking, well, there's new opportunities. I want to go study. It's starting again. Yeah, the good timing, this is a crossroads. But for others, they may be feeling left behind, asking themselves, did I do something wrong? Bringing up self-doubt, unfinished business. That question, will I manage? How will I manage? So how you manage your endings will either enhance your sense of well-being and make you stronger and more resilient, or it will add to the stress and the mixed emotions as you struggle to deal with the changes. So how do we manage to go through this? Well, there's three steps to this. One is actually acknowledge the ending. Once you acknowledge whatever it is that has ended, you can start to disengage from that role. For example, a student who's moving on to working life. I remember my son who was at university and in Stirling and found it really hard to move on from that, found it hard to acknowledge the ending. And he would go back and eventually he decided, you know, he would stay with friends. He was looking for work there. He would meet his student friends and so on. Just found it hard to make that change, to acknowledge this was an ending and there were new opportunities ahead. Perhaps it's the same with a single person entering into a relationship or a marriage. It's making that, acknowledging that there's an ending there and there is a new beginning. You disengage from the relationships, the activities, the environment of that role. And I don't mean that you just abandon all your friends and all your colleagues, but it's starting to unplug yourself from that particular environment that gave you identity. For example, if you were a student while you were studying and I would say to you, well, who are you? And you go, well, I'm a student. Once you've moved on, you may be saying, well, I'm an actor in this production. Once that's gone, once there's that ending there, and I say to you, so who are you? And you go, what do you say? Your identity was that actor, was that student, was that employee, perhaps for a business. And it's fine because maybe for a time, you know, that you keep in touch, you know, the student, you keep in touch for a while, you meet up for lunch, you meet up for drinks. But eventually, you find yourself in a place ready to let go, ready to focus on new practices, on new habits that relate to your new job identity. And noticing that not everything is gone. You know, you define, you know, what it is, you know, what is there, what isn't, and you adapt. You just adapt to move forward. And that's acknowledging the ending. And for many, they'll say, you know, if you look at it, that there's that old saying, as one door closes, another opens. But what I'm saying is, until we acknowledge the ending, it is hard to move on. We're stuck in the grief. We're stuck in the loss. And it's okay to grieve. And that's the neutral zone. So the neutral zone, which is the next part, is that grieving, where you've accepted the ending as such, you've accepted the change, but you're still struggling to move. You're still struggling to move forward. That neutral zone, it's kind of, you know, it's that cutting ties with the old, but not yet settled into the new. The new isn't fully up and running. And that might be where you are at the moment. If there's been the loss of a job, that you know, moving, you had to move or whatever, where you're going, yeah, not quite able to let that go as such, but not quite knowing where I am at the moment. And that is the grieving stage as such. And for some, you know, that transition, it can take days. For others, it can take weeks. And for others, it can take months. And it's acknowledging we're grieving. We're grieving a loss. And a loss, you know, it doesn't have to be a big thing. I lost my handbag a few months ago in London. That was a loss, and I grieved. I grieved for that loss and went through the whole grieving process until reaching that acceptance, and then I was able to move on. One of the things about being stuck perhaps in the grieving process is that it can trigger low self-esteem, so the emotions that go with that, particularly if it resonates with past difficulties. So here's a stage, you know, that just to be aware of, is that where you are at the moment? Are you stuck at that stage, grieving, you know, what was, but still not quite sure how to move forward? But that's okay, because it's noting that we all grieve differently and we all grieve in our own time. So at this, if that's you, it's important to give yourself the time you need to mourn the ending, whatever that is for you. And it's important, though, to acknowledge your emotions around this time. Listen to what your emotions are telling you. This is a time to consider and explore new possibilities in order to make peace with that ending and begin to move forward. It is a dangerous zone, as I said, because we can start to overthink, we can start to get bogged down. But you'll know, you'll see that light at the end of the tunnel, you'll see that light starting to open up, and you'll know that you're coming to the end of that. Perhaps how to help yourself get through this, maybe you can think of an ending that you've experienced previously, because we've all had endings. That might have been a job, maybe a relationship, maybe a house move. And stop and think, okay, what helped me to accept and move through that experience? And we're talking about resilience here, the resilience we gain as we go through life. Can you think of the skills, the qualities, the strengths, the connections that helped you to move through that ending? Can you then look at those skills and qualities and strengths and connections and go, okay, can some of those help me move through what's happening now? Can they help me move through this ending, this change, these emotions? And they'll be there, just getting in touch with those strengths, the resilience that has taken you to where you are today. That will take you forward. And what I will say to you is be kind, be patient with yourself, and give yourself time to heal. The last stage of the change, of dealing with those endings, is actually embracing that change. You know, it's a new beginning. This is a new identity for you. It is that one door closes and another opens. And then you notice how you feel, that sense of clarity, feeling lighter, looking forward to the future. Let go of what was. Celebrate the good, forgive the bad. But letting go is part of that process of stepping into new beginnings. And I know it can be hard, but letting go of that loss, letting go of the old identity, the old ways. You explored who you are, what's important to you, and what you need to be fulfilled. And you take that and you work with that. If we can learn to work with change, you'll reduce the risk of anxiety and depression. If you can work your way through lowering that risk of anxiety, of depression, relationships will improve and your body will actually feel healthier. If you find it difficult to cope with change, where even a little bump in the road, a small amount of stress can make you feel overwhelmed, then perhaps it's speak to friends, maybe speak to a counsellor. Things we can do to move forward. Well, set your sights on what you can control. You know, it's easy to think only about, you know, the events that we have no power over. We have no power over COVID-19. We have no power over the redundancies that are happening at the moment. We have no power over the industry and where it's going to go. So instead of trying to move the unmovable, think about what you can control. When you start to look for the opportunities to empower yourself, to work towards the things that you can change, you're less likely to feel stuck. So giving it some thought, what can you change? What is within your power to change? And you may be sitting there and go, well, absolutely nothing, Mary. But give it some thought. I find with clients that, yes, they go, well, do you know, I can do this. I can actually, do you know, I can work on my CV. I can actually explore, you know, that university course, or I can explore something that I've always wanted to do that's different, taking back the control that you can. And absolutely acknowledge the loss, because it is a loss. Acknowledge the sadness. Listen to your emotions. What are they telling you? Don't push that grief down. We've seen what it can do if we push the emotions down. Don't push it down. Don't push it away. Find the support that you need from friends, from family, from connections. And if you do need that extra support, then yes, speak to a counsellor. One of the things before I finish was maybe to say to you, check your thought patterns. Notice, you know, are you getting into unhelpful, negative thinking patterns? So easy to do. Are you catastrophizing? Are you thinking of the worst case scenario? That my job has gone, oh, that means I'm going to lose my house, I'm going to starve, I'm going to end up on the streets begging. How likely is that? But the negative thoughts, the negative thinking starts to creep in there. Notice if you're doing that. The black and white thinking, things are either good or they're bad, with no in between. Of course there's grey, there's an in between. Predicting what's going to happen. So notice your thought patterns. Are they unhelpful thought patterns, negative thinking patterns? And start nudging those thoughts towards positive thinking. Reminding yourself of the challenges you've faced in the past, the endings that have been there in the past, whether planned or unplanned, and you've overcome them. You're here, you've learned from them, you've gained resilience. Focus on your strengths, not your weaknesses, and you will feel empowered. The other thing is be present. Be present, tune into your body, tune into your emotions. Yes, look to the past to find your strengths. Avoid being pulled too much into the future. Just notice what's happening with you in the here and the now. We can't avoid change. We can't avoid endings. But you can look on that change as an opportunity rather than something to be afraid of. Call on those past experiences to help you through. Talk to your family, talk to your friends who are experiencing similar things, perhaps, experiencing similar changes. Listen to your emotions. You're resilient. See the changes, the endings as opportunities to grow and to thrive. And remember those emotions. Name it, feel it, and you'll move through it. Thank you. And I'm happy to take questions if anyone's still there. Yes.
Oh gosh, that was so lovely. I said to you yesterday when I spoke to you, you just have such a lovely calming voice anyway, but everything that you're saying there just really resonates with me, and I'm sure it resonates with everybody else as well. You know, taking a minute, there's no better time than right now to take a minute and actually sit with how you're feeling, rather than always trying to find the solution and like move past it very, very quickly onto the next episode. That was wonderful. So I've got a couple of questions, and
Okay.
if anybody has any questions, please do pop them in as well, and Mary would be very happy to answer them. So Emma asked just at the beginning there, how can I control my panic attacks before and during an audition?
Right. Absolutely. The first thing, and if there's an audition, I imagine she has been taught to breathe. And breathing, because the panic attacks, and it's going back to those emotions we talked about at the start, the emotion, the anxiety, the fear, and without going into it in too much depth, that our thoughts can create the fear, and yet our thought is just that, it's not real. So if we're thinking something, the fear is created in our body reacts, you know, the heart beats faster, we get sweaty palms, you know, our breathing gets quicker. And yet it's going back to that primal part of our brain where that fight or flight, the caveman with the saber-toothed tiger had to react quickly. The thing is that in the modern world, we're not facing saber-toothed tigers, but that part of our brain is still there. So our body reacts now to a thought, yes, and our body then, it goes into that panic mode. And what we're trying to do then is to calm, is to tell the body there is no danger here. This is fine. And the first thing to do with that, absolutely, is to breathe. Different breathing exercises suit different people. For me, I like the 4x4 because it gets in touch with the vagal nerve, which is that calming, which is, you know, afterwards telling the body to calm down. And that is, you know, sort of breathe in for 4, out for 4, in for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, rest for 4. But whichever works, because that's it, it's getting rid of the adrenaline, the cortisol out of our bodies and calms us down. Lots of other techniques as well to calm ourselves, perhaps in an addition. For example, focusing on something on the wall, a clock, a picture. And that's like mindfulness. You're bringing yourself back into the present, and the body starts to go, hey, do you know, my feet are on the floor. This is it. I can see that on the wall. And that's calming. And the whole 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, I don't know if people have used that. And again, it's about being present, because your thought, which is unreal, is not true. There is no danger. Is bringing yourself into the present, and it's going, if I can remember, 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can, I'm struggling with my senses here, 3 things you can smell. Yeah. What have I missed? Hear, we forgot the hear. So 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear, 3 things you can touch, 2 things you can smell, 1 thing you can taste. And I think by the time you work yourself through that anyway, Hannah, my goodness, you're right, you're back in the room for sure. But they do work, and it's about taking yourself back into the present. It's about getting rid of the adrenaline and the cortisol out of your body, and it does help. Last little thing on that is maybe also that if that's an ongoing thing, if that's something, you know, that sits with you or is really bad, sometimes it's worth going, what's the cause? What is there, you know, that's triggering that? And that's worth a chat with the counsellor for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Another thing that actors have to deal with on top of nerves is rejection, and having to pick yourself back up and keep going when you might be facing a lot of no's. I'm sure that's something that you've come across in your counselling. Is there any tips that you have around that?
That again is maybe a bigger question as well, because why is it one person can walk out of an audition room and go, on to the next one, and someone else comes out and they're broken, do you know, that they're deeply hurt? And what we'd be looking at, and it's looking at those emotions again we talked about, is recognizing, well, what am I feeling? Do you know, am I feeling rejected? Am I feeling hurt? Am I feeling worthless? Yes. So part of that is going, well, what's the actual emotion? And then that question, why am I feeling this? Is it something I've experienced before? Does this go back to an experience, you know, I've had as a child? And it may well be, I've found with clients that perhaps it's rejection. They've experienced rejection in the past. And then when they come out of the rejection, it's touching those past experiences of feeling rejected, when they're not. If we look at it, we know there's lots of reasons for not getting through an audition, none of them to do with the person standing there, really. Yes, but we take it in, it's about me, it's about ourselves. So it's exploring that, and very much the start of that is, what is the emotion? What am I feeling right now?
Yeah. Great. Todd has asked, can you ever really get rid of regrets of things that you should have done? Or is it something you will always carry with you?
Can you get rid of regret? And again, there's an exploration there. Go, well, what is the regret? Is it what's tying you to that regret? And part of that is very much self-compassion, perhaps, that I find with this industry, with creators, there's not a lot of self-compassion around, for I don't know, for whatever reason. And yet, they're the best friends to other people. So I would say, was it Todd who asked that? And I would say to Todd and go, well, with that regret, perhaps you've done something, you've experienced something. Would you say to your friend, you know, if that had been your friend's experience, would you turn to your friend and you go, well, obviously you should feel guilty about that for the rest of your life. That was a terrible thing to do. And we wouldn't. We would be so compassionate to our friends and we go, do you know, in the scheme of things, you know, was it so big that we all make mistakes? And it's perhaps then for Todd to go, well, what about some of that self-compassion towards himself, to forgive himself, and to look at the issue and go, what is it that's still tying him to that? Is there some emotion? You know, be that guilt, be that, yes, whatever, and look at that emotion and deal with it. And the why, it goes back to that why. Why do I feel like that?
Yeah. Camilla has asked, how do you get over hurt when the person who caused the hurt never acknowledged their part in causing the pain? When it comes to family, we hold on to relationships that have done more harm than good. And it is easier to let go of a friend as opposed to family. Yeah, so how do you get over hurt when it's family and they're not acknowledging what they've done?
That is, and that's something that comes up quite a lot, actually. Is it a hard one? It's different for everyone. But one of the things is we can't change people. I can't make you be someone you're not. I can't change you. And if you won't, if you know, if this is you and I, Hannah, not that you would hurt me, I know, but
I would,
you know, you know, if you had caused that hurt and I'm sitting with it, I wonder if it's finding a way for me then to get over that, hurt. I don't mean get over it, but find a way to work through it. And again, it's going, what keeps you stuck? What keeps you stuck with that, those feelings? Very often, you know, it's people that go, well, they should pay for it. They should suffer for what they've done. And that's about, you know, if it's you and I, that's about me. That's about me being stuck because I can't change you. And one of the hard things, particularly with parents, people who have come with parents who can be just sort of, you know, unhelpful or aggressive, is saying, can you find a way to allow them to be who they are, because only they can change themselves? Can you find a way to protect you, to stop feeling what you're feeling? And once you start really allowing someone to be who they are, that other individual, the parent or whatever, that's then you starting to break that cord that's keeping you attached to them. And let's face it, at the end of the day, you know, I see it with relationships, you know, with the partner who's caused hurt. And I'll say, well, do you think they're worrying about this day after day? Who's hurting here? And it's almost like just reinforcing the hurt on yourself. And if we were talking, we would perhaps be looking and saying, well, what's that about? Is that almost punishing yourself? Is there a need there to punish yourself, to feel bad? And also sometimes, once we're in a negative thought, there's actually a comfort. This might sound strange, but there's actually a comfort in that feeling of being sad, of being betrayed, because that's the norm. That's what we're used to. And actually the hard part is leaving that behind, is leaving those negative thoughts behind and finding positive. And often that's where I find resistance with clients, where we might go, there's hurts there, and we'll look at ways to leave it. And there's I can see the barrier go up because that has become their norm. That's their comfort. So there might well be something there. What's keeping you there? What's keeping you stuck? Do you know, is that just because it's harder not to feel hurt?
Yeah.
A long answer, sorry.
No, that is so true. So I'm really glad that you really went into that. So I just wanted to go again back into your work with Industry Minds and what you provide and what your goal is with Industry Minds. So it's access to counselling, right?
Yes, there's a lot. So Industry Minds set up by Kathy and Scarlett. They have podcasts that they put out, very, very helpful. And they've got a new initiative now for the 2020 graduates, providing lots of classes, lots of online help. But part of that is they acknowledge that there wasn't a lot of counselling available, you know, reasonably priced counselling available for people within the arts who do experience, you know, similar type anxieties or issues. And they decided they would set up that counselling, and that's where I joined. And they will provide, for people who are out of work in the industry, they will provide free counselling. If anyone is able to pay, that's absolutely amazing. Face-to-face counselling, when we're able to do it, which is now online, is £25, which is very, very reasonable. In fact, at the moment during lockdown, that's reduced to £15. And then all they ask is that it will be given free. There's never a question of, are you working? It's all taken on trust. And if you can pay, you pay. Even if that's £5 or £10, then they have a Just Giving page. And all of that money that's donated will go to helping people who cannot afford counselling, and who need the counselling, who are struggling. So it's a wonderful initiative, and I hope I've covered it. I hope I've covered it all.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And this is, you know, I thought it was very important for us to get you on today, and what you do with Industry Minds and what Industry Minds does to the industry in the UK is so important. And as you say, you know, there's so many problems and issues and anxieties around the industry that we work in, whether you're an actor, which is the majority of our audience, or if you're a filmmaker, because it's freelance and we're all fighting for something, and you know, the downtime is excruciating, and right now everybody's in a bit of downtime. So I'm so glad that we had you on today, and I can't thank you enough.
No, thank you, Hannah. And thank you to everyone who's saying thank you there. And I noticed that someone was looking for contact details. Will you put that out anyway, Hannah, for Industry Minds?
Well, we're, you, hang on a second.
Thank you, Diane.
It in there. What is the best way for people to get in touch? Would it be
the website? There is the Industry Minds website, and certainly Twitter at Industry Minds. And if anyone needs to get in touch with me around counselling, they can just email me on mary@industryminds.co.uk.
There you go, guys. I've just posted that in the chat box, so do copy and paste that into your notes. And then Twitter. Oh, I did know.
Yeah, is it at industryminds.co.uk? At Industry Minds? Oh, you can tell I'm great with social media.
Twitter is at Industry Minds, and they are really good for a follow because they at Industry Minds UK. I do apologise. They post out everything that they're working on, and they've always got new initiatives and things that they're trying to focus on. So yeah,
And they're doing some CCI is a project on the go at the mind at the moment that Industry Minds is working with. So again, CCI, I don't, maybe you can find it, Hannah, is a wonderful project for anyone who isn't, you know, performing at the moment. There are dance classes, there are chats, there's everything. So do have a look at CCI as well.
Yeah,
that I should know. Yeah,
it's creative. It's the
consultative. Oh, yeah, go for it. It's something creative initiative. Consultative.
Collective creative
initiative. Collective creative initiative. Absolutely worth a look. They're doing such amazing work for the moment as well for people in the industry, and which will go right through until October. And it's organised by two casting directors, by Rosie and James Pearson. And do follow Industry Minds on Twitter, please. Great stuff there as well. That's me. I won't get in trouble now that I've mentioned them.
Yeah, exactly.
I always forget.
I've just popped in the website for Collective Creative Initiative. We did actually have Pearson Casting on a couple of weeks ago.
Great.
It's great what they're doing, and yeah, as I say, it's great that you're involved in that. So there we go. That's all we have time for. And thank you for joining and being so open and engaging in the chat box. It's been amazing. This was recorded, so we will be posting this out as well. And if you want to follow us or tweet us about the session today, we're at Backstage on Twitter, and we're at Backstage Cast on Instagram. I am at Hannah Castin on Twitter. And again, Industry Minds is at Industry Minds UK on Twitter, and I've industryminds.co.uk is the website.
Wonderful.
So thank you, Mary.
No, thank you, and thank you everyone for being here today. That's great. Any questions, you can email me as well, and happy to answer them. Thank you everyone.
Thanks. Have a lovely afternoon, everyone.
Bye. Bye-bye.